One more time, you guys feeling it still? Nice. Well, I want to thank you guys for participating, joining, listening. I had a great time today being your MC. Now I'm going to hand it over to a professional. Clyde Lewis is going to be moderating everybody that spoke yesterday and today. And without further ado, let's put our hands together for Clyde Lewis.
Hello, everybody. Had a good time at Squatch Fest. I had a great time. This is my first time here, and I really thank you all for your hospitality and coming by and saying hello, and all the wonderful speakers we've had today. Fest has taught me a lot. I had my experience, my Bigfoot experience near Trout Lake, Washington, and it was an amazing experience. I thought I was looking at a wrestler eating apples in an orchard. It turned out it was Bigfoot. And the thing that really sucked about it was I realized I had Bigfoot in my sights. I didn't pull out my camera. And so it's like a fish story, but still it was an amazing story, an amazing experience, and I'm really glad to have had that experience. Now, one of the things I wanted to do before we ask questions of the speakers, and we are going to open up the audience as well. This is kind of what I like to do when I do my Ground Zero lounges. I get up and I do some stuff, and then we have guests, and we have all of you speak, and it's going to be great because we want to have a big powwow and get down to the bottom of this, talk about it openly. So, how many people have heard of the show Ground Zero by applause by show? Applause. You know, and that's great because I come out to places like this, and you know what's really awesome about being here in Kelso, Longview area? This is home for Bigfoot. Wouldn't you say, give it a big applause here, please? It is. This is where it all begins, right here in Skamania, Klickitat County. I mean, you know, I hear that he every once in a while gets a latte in Stevenson, so you know it's one of those things that he tends to get coffee there, from what I understand. But yeah, I'm just happy to be in the Pacific Northwest here to talk about Bigfoot. But get down to business here. Now I know the big, and this is big at the radio station. We did our show about Bigfoot the other night. I called the Highway Hopsquatch. Because as we were saying here at the gathering here, that Bigfoot always shows up on the highway. And many people don't know this, but one of the first shots of Bigfoot standing on the road last year was November 30th off of I-84 near the Hood River exit. Anybody hear about this? Yeah. Police got a phone call saying there was a man standing on the side of the road that was dwarfing the guardrail. Sure enough, they got a snap of it heading right off the exit of Hood River, which is great because I know that my Sasquatch sighting was over near Trout Lake, which is like if he had to have swam to Columbia to get over the other side of Hood River. So I thought that was kind of cool because I said, yeah, you see it. If you look up ODOT has the photo of this Bigfoot standing there dwarfing the guardrail. It's a huge, kind of a grainy guy, but of course it's dark. And so it's amazing to take a look at. Now, I know that everybody's talking about the recent shot from Washington Department of Transportation. Now, I understand when you see it, it's a shadow. I understand that they have another one where it's dark and that shadow's still there, and of course that kind of cancels it out as being like maybe a cutout. Somebody seeing, but what they don't talk about is the other shot, which is the Snoqualmie shot. Anybody see that yet? I got it right here if you want to see it. I'm going to show this because nobody has shown this today. And I got to get off my chest so everybody can see it. And let's see if I can get this to work. Okay. Widescreen. Yep, there it is. Move this over. And hit play. Notice what's walking up the mountain pass. Now what's interesting is this is a remote area. It's nighttime. And that's night vision. And whatever that thing is walking up the mountainside, it doesn't seem to tire all that much. Now, I'm a fat guy. I'd probably have a cardiac arrest if I was to walk like that up the mountainside. But I just say that people are overlooking this thing, wondering, what is this? Now, they always talk about the gate, they talk about everything else. I say that, I don't know. I don't know what people think of it, but there it is again. as it's walking up the mountainside there.
Like,
yes.
Like it looks left and then it looks right.
Yeah, it looks left and right. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted you up here, because you were the one that was saying that you had an idea about that one. What is your feeling about this one?
Well, I just, to me it looked really interesting. The other one was at Sherman's Pass. It looked like a cutout.
Yeah.
This one, it's definitely some type of form of possibly a human in a suit, or it could be a smaller juvenile Sasquatch. We don't know.
Well, the only thing that I say about this is that while I think the gait is kind of looks more human than anything else, what I don't understand is how someone with that thin of air and in that kind of cold can walk that fast up a mountainside like that in a remote area that's hard to get to. So I don't know what that is. I don't know what it could be. I mean, Jeff, do you have something to say about it?
I'm sorry. I got to make a quick announcement.
Okay, hold on.
F-150 pickup, license plate 0847 Washington, needs to move their truck. They're in a loading area. So if you have a white F-150 pickup, you're in front of the kitchen and they can't move. I apologize, Clyde.
Oh, no problem. Does anyone know Snoqualmie's elevation? Anyone? What is it?
2,300 feet.
2,300 feet.
My house is 4,200 feet.
Right.
I'm just saying, you lowlanders' concept of thin air is a little different than mine.
Well, I'm from Utah, okay? I came from Utah, and believe me, whenever I get anywhere above 20 feet, I start huffing and puffing. So, because the air is like, it thins out. I'm so used to being down here. You're right. It's amazing. So this is some great footage. I'm sure, you know, Dr. Melvin would have something to say about it, or somebody else if they analyzed it more, give us a good skeptical opinion on it, because that's what I'm looking for if you want to look at it. I think it's amazing. It's good for some discussion. If those of you who see it want to discuss it, that's great. Another thing I want to show you is, how many people are familiar with the Russian footage that's been going around the internet right now by applause? Anybody? Okay, this is some amazing stuff. Now, the camera is a little unsteady, but this, whatever it is keeping up with the vehicle as they're trying to get away from it. And so it's some amazing footage, and hopefully we'll be able to give you a good idea about this too. So hold on one moment. These are some things that have not been shown today that I wanted to show you. All right. Here we go with this one. I don't know if there's any sound. I don't hear any sound, because you hear the girls screaming. Is there sound on this? Hold on one moment. Put on pause. The girls, you get to hear the terror of these girls' voices when they're being chased by this thing. So, here we go. Let's get some sound on this one here. Here we go.
Он скрылся! Его не видно! Его не видно! Он стоит, он знает, что мы снимаем! Отобри его! Он идет! Не подходи!
Look how big that is. Look at, oh my God, it's huge.
Ну-ка, давай, подойди сюда. Снимай.
Снимай.
У тебя зум, есть зум? Прибавь изображение побольше, можешь?
Могу.
Да, пальцем.
Прибавила.
Я поближе подойду.
We're waiting to see if it's going to come. Of course it's going to come. It's going to run towards you. Get going.
Он типа вон был, да? Ага, это он.
Он идет! Он бежит! Он встает!
Look how tall it is compared to the telephone pole. It's pretty tall. Hold on a second.
Что за коня?
Что, ты не можешь ехать? Лёш!
Пробуждение.
Он бежит! Он идет!
Аделина, ты, пожалуйста, ты телефон слышишь четко было. Мы все равно нас не догонят в медленнее.
Все, окей, давай, снимаем. Только главное едь. Он упал. Он упал. Ладно, все, едь, все, что нам...
Уже домой нет?
Я домой.
So there you go.
Hey, good for Tony, eh?
What do you think? Isn't that amazing? By applause? Isn't it? I think it's amazing, actually. But anyway, so, you know, a good way to start the conversation is to, you know, is to actually get some footage that nobody's seen and to talk about it and also talk about some other things too. I wanted to sit on that chair, so I got to move over because I can't stand here the whole time. I'm looking down on everybody. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. So, I mean, new footage happens all the time, and new occurrences happen all the time. And, I mean, you don't have to speak Russian to see that it's pretty darn terrifying what's going on with that. But I guess we could go down the panel here. First of all, Craig, what's your opinion of the Russian footage?
Well, I think it looks real. I mean, you could tell on the reaction from the people in the car. They stop. The girls are all screaming. The guys are interested in looking at it, and then it starts charging them, and then they decide to go. I mean, if something's charging you like that, Derek made a comment one time about when one bluff charged them, and it scared the living daylights out of them. I know I would. If I'm in a car, I'm probably going to keep going. I'm not going to stop. But I've never been that close, and hopefully someday in my life I get an honor to do that.
So, Dr. Meldrum, any thoughts?
It's been so long since I've actually seen it, and I didn't have a good enough advantage here, but the points raised are all valid ones, the bluff charge behavior, the reaction of the witnesses. I'd be interested to see where this exactly took place, what kind of habitat is around. Is this, out in the middle of rural farmland with no wild habitat to take refuge in or what? But it was one of the more intriguing and interesting ones.
Yeah, I stumbled upon it, and they've been doing like steady footage of it, just like they're now we have the power to do steady footage of like the Patterson-Gimlin film. We've looked at that. We can see muscular movement with Patty. And I've been watching that intently, and I talked to Bob about it earlier, and he's really impressed with the Steadicam footage. This has Steadicam footage as well. You can look closely when it's haunching forward and charging. You can see that it certainly has form, but of course, again, it's too far away, and we always wonder if Bigfoot is really a blurry creature rather than getting a blurry photo. But then again, I guess, that's why I wanted people to start, they'll talk about it. Cliff, what do you think?
I think without extensive witness interviews and an on-site investigation, all you can say is maybe. But I'm no fun.
Shane, what about you?
At the end of the day, it's interesting. For me, I'm not really familiar with that footage, but it's interesting. I think there's a lot of, over the years, real quick, I've seen a lot of interesting footage. But at this point, it's without investigation, extensive, like Cliff said, talking to witnesses and all that. It's interesting at the end of the day, so have at it.
That's the first time I've ever seen it, and I only got to see part of it. But it's pretty interesting, kind of sketchy, a little spooky, but again, without a backstory, knowing the story, the people involved, and like Jeff brought up, we don't know what the habitat's like around there. I have a feeling these things don't reside in fields like that, so without knowing anything more about it, it's just something, another thing. And I'm more skeptical every day I get older too. So.
From what I've seen, you gentlemen are correct. Cliff, you're right. But what I've seen up here close, I believe it is a real, because the way it's hunkered over, the stride, the way it walked, the earlier videos we had, you could tell that the stride wasn't right because of the knee bend, the foot usage. This right here was already hunkered over. I'm like you, I'd have to have a witness interview, come out and see what they're eating, everything about the habitat, but that looked pretty darn good to me.
It looked to me like the real deal. I mean, love charge, reaction of people, size up in comparison to the telephone, like you other guys. I think it's the real deal. Yes, sir.
That's the first time I've ever seen that. And I'd love to be able to sit down and look at it a little closer, because it would be worth going and checking out, I guarantee you. I have to agree with everybody else here. You'd have to investigate more, check out the area, talk to the people. I mean, it'd be worth checking out, though.
Thank you. Dr. Miller, I have a question for you, because I think this would be more along your expertise, and maybe we can ask Cliff too. We know that we're squeezing out the forest right now, and what I mean by that is we're building and building and building till the point we may be squeezing Sasquatch out of its domain. And I've been hearing more stories now about Sasquatch being more aggressive and territorial. Do you hear that at all? Because I'm getting that a lot on my radio show, that the Bigfoot now are no longer shy. They're going into chicken coops, they're going and they're tearing animals apart, they're doing all kinds of things. What do you say to that?
I guess I don't have the kind of experiences, caller base like that you're working from to judge that upon. The types of things that come to my attention don't suggest that. There has been a curtailment of the rate at which we're cutting down on forests, and I hope that forest management is addressing issues of development. There's also, countering that, there is a decided move away from rural settings into urban and immediate suburban settings. There are fewer people in the backcountry making a living as foresters and prospectors and fur trappers, etc. I've had people point that out repeatedly when we've been out in the field. Just for example, we bumped into a guy who could no longer make a living as a backcountry guide and was repairing fences, and he was bemoaning the fact that backpacking and horse packing has kind of gone the way in popularity, and people were, if they can't get there on a four-wheeler, not interested. Just not physically fit to get back there to hunt in the backcountry and hike and so forth. So it's hard to gauge how these different factors are interacting with one another. We know so little about Sasquatch behavior anyway. To make generalizations about changes in their behavior over time is a little bit speculative.
Because I've always, and Cliff, I want your opinion on this too. I always, have seen and read stories of him being, or the creature being very shy and not encountering humans and not wanting to be around humans. But I mean, one of the scariest stories I ever heard happened right here with the miners in the 8 caves and what happened there with that situation. And so I was raised on scary Bigfoot stories more so than the passive ones. What about some of the things you've been hearing or experiencing, Cliff?
I don't think that they're any more aggressive than they ever have been. What I think it is the media in general, no matter what kind of media it is, television or podcasts or radio or whatever, go for the best stories on us. And I saw the same thing on my production of Finding Bigfoot, is that when a witness cried, that made the camera. When a witness was terrified, that made camera. Because frankly, think about the sighting that happened on the 4th of January this year that I investigated. The woman saw it on the road, thought it was a bear, stood up, oh my God, it's not a bear, walked into the woods. It's not really that exciting at the end of the day. And those are the vast majority of sighting reports, and those are the ones that aren't that exciting exciting to listen to. You know, those are the ones that don't make television or whatever, or podcasts or whatever. And also I'd like to point out, having gone down to Australia to look for the yowie, opened my eyes about the subjectivity of sighting reports as well. Because if you read the books, you know, the Cropper books and the Tony Healy and those guys, they're always talking about how the local people, the investigators that are terrified of these cannibalistic monsters and they're going to rip you to shreds and whatever. And I get down there and these like hardcore Australian investigators are wearing penny loafers and slacks out in the bush. And they're not exactly our version of mountain folks, you know what I mean? Like they look nothing like these guys, right? And like they're kind of soft, you know. They look like they came straight from their desk job, and they're doing Bigfoot investigations. And I think and from my when I think I had an experience with a yowie down there, it seemed like a Bigfoot to me. You know, it didn't do much. It growled and pushed down a tree and went away and whatever. But if you talk to the investigators down there, and these things are going to rip your hair out, rip your arms off, and then eat you, then vomit you back up and eat you again, maybe. I mean, like, you know, they're like horrible monsters. I think that's their lack of experience in the woods that makes them more frightened, like the Yowies more frightening. And I think that's the case with the Sasquatch thing too.
All right, mountain monster men, you guys are out in the thick of it. Give me some stories about when you felt that maybe you became the hunted rather than the hunter. Love to hear that.
I got one that'll match up what you guys are talking about. It was a year and a half ago, Route 50, Stillwell Road. We have a tremendous amount of pipelining going on in West Virginia. You can't believe you're talking about changing the woods around and the animals are moving and the cryptids are going, what the hell happened? I gotta move. Okay? Well, this Bigfoot came out. I talked to the Traco operator and the two crewmen that were with him. This Bigfoot actually came out of its cave and was throwing rocks at these guys. I mean, I'm talking boulders. And I said, what were you doing? He said, well, I had that 690 Traco with the little thing on the end of it, and I was beating the ground. Well, if you were knocking on my door like that, I'd certainly throw rocks at you too. And this is true. I have it all documented, part of the story. I'm not sure we'll ever go for the hunt for that creature, but we do know it exists right there because those guys were terrified. They packed their crap up and left. They said, we're never coming back.
Any other commentary from you gentlemen? Anything else you may want to talk about where you become the hunted rather than the hunter?
Yeah, we went up against the Yahoo one time, and he changed the tables on us real quick. I don't believe he was trying to hurt us or anything, but he wanted us out of his country. And like everybody says, a lot of these people that are hunting Bigfoot now and getting out the back country and stuff, you know, they see something and it automatically gets bigger and white. You spend time in the woods, as these guys and us do, you learn to slow down and try to take your time and take everything you can in. And a lot of people, you know, I can't remember which one of you it was that did that, where you drove a car down the road and had different sized Bigfoots, and people was in the car, and half the people couldn't even prove what it was and didn't even notice it. And a lot of it is just because of inexperienced people out there chasing things. And they get excited. It's just plain and simple, you know. When you get excited, you don't see good. That's about all I have to say.
Okay, Shane, I want to talk about the Olympic project a bit because I know a little bit about it. And I know you guys have been, you know, you go into the trenches too with your studies and what you're doing. Recently did a show about sounds. I heard this sound of a Bigfoot, and to me it sounded like a wolf that was in a lot of trouble. How do you differentiate between a regular animal that's in trouble and a Bigfoot?
Well, truly, there's a lot of sounds we hear in the woods, and a lot of people are not educated. There's no offense to anybody, but a lot of people aren't educated with known animals. You know, it's amazing what a cougar can do. They can whistle, they can scream like a woman. It's amazing. And so, really, we don't have any solid evidence as to what Sasquatch can, you know, sounds they can make. All we do is look at known animals. And so one of the members that, and you interviewed him the other night there, Clyde, was David Ellis, and he talked about looking at sounds. Not just your ears can play tricks on you. If you can visually look at sounds like via a sonic visualizer and a spectrograph and start to recognize certain peaks and stuff like that, you know, not just hearing it, but looking at it and visually looking at it, and then comparing it to say like the Macaulay Library of Sounds, which is a phenomenal website of known animal sounds, and comparing it. But I always say this, you know, we don't know every animal sound out there, period. You know, when I walk into a room and it's dark and I stub my toe, I'll make sounds I never knew I was capable of making, period. You know, oh, you know, so, you know, what does a coyote do when it stubs a toe, or, you know, whatever. So there's a lot of sounds, you know, that are true to Sasquatch that are really just known animals. I don't think Sasquatch is constantly making noise and whatnot. So it's a tough question because we have never seen, there's no real evidence that Sasquatch makes sounds, right? I mean, other than what's reported, very few people have seen a Sasquatch make a sound. But there's a lot of interesting tidbits that with sightings and recorded sounds that we can look at visually and compare it to known animals, and then rule out their capabilities via the hertz and the frequency. And so there's a lot to it. At the end of the day, you know, it's you just compile the data, as David Ellis would say, and put it in the interesting range, you know, the weirdo meter, and you compile that. You know, I do think Sasquatch does make a lot of odd sounds, as they're known to be. So, yeah, be familiar with your animals out there, but animals can make the craziest sounds. I've heard a lot. Bears, cougars, deer, elk. And then, of course, you know, with all these Bigfooters out there, we make weird sounds, right? So you got to be very selective as to, you know, what you're calling Sasquatch. You really got to do your homework.
Derek, and you'd be next on my list to talk. I know that you were involved with the skookum casting, and one of the things, one of the stories I heard about the skookum casting was the way you lured, or you guys were putting, I think, was it dole fruit out there for Sasquatch?
Yeah, it was an array of things. I think we had some oranges, some tangerines, apples, right. Just a bunch of different stuff.
So I want to talk to you about diet, okay? Because diet's, I think, important here. You know, I know that we were hearing today about, you know, omnivore, that sort of thing, but did the skookum cast, if I recall, did it produce any scat? You could tell that maybe the diet was of some, I mean, I know they eat clams and they eat fish and other things. What are some of the things you can tell us about the diet of a Sasquatch?
Well, we just kind of, through the patterning and the research we've done over the years, like I was saying in the presentation earlier, quite positive that they feed on ungulates. Okay, hands down, deer and elk. There's been a lot of sighting reports of them carrying deer and elk. There have been a lot of sighting reports where a hunter will dispatch a deer or an elk or any other small game animal only to have it carried away by a Sasquatch. These sightings happen again and again, and these events happen again and again. And the other thing that we talked about earlier is why are all the Sasquatch sightings on the road? You know, they're to me, it's plain as day, and to Shane, it's plain as day, it's roadkill. You know, and I think it would be really cool to go forward as a researcher. Anytime there's a road crossing sighting, do your due diligence, jump out, walk the edges of the road to see if there's roadkill laying there, because I'll bet there would be. As far as the skookum cast is concerned, there wasn't any scat associated with it. We did find scat, which could have been attributed to bear scat. During the adventure there, we did find tracks. And what a lot of people don't know is the night before we actually discovered the cast, after baiting it, we got one of the best vocalizations I've ever heard in my life from our away camp up on the ridge. And it was unbelievable. It was primal, it was real, it didn't make the hair stand up type of a sound. So a lot of different things actually happen on that expedition that are, you know, associated with the cast itself. But I can't say there was any scat directly, you know, coinciding with the cast itself.
Okay. So, Dr. Meldrum, I have a question dealing with proof. I know that that's what we're looking for. We're looking for proof, evidence that is irrefutable. The problem I have with this, and the problem I have with this idea of irrefutable evidence is, what the hell do we have to compare to? Because if we're going to go and say that something that left behind hair or something left behind scat is a certain type of animal that lives in the woods, what are we looking for? I mean, you're not going to classify something as a Bigfoot. You're going to go in and you're going to say what kind of animal or species this is. And the reason why I say that is they discovered, University of Buffalo found that they have discovered the Yeti. Okay, they discovered it and they realized it was a hybrid bear but does not have any comparisons to the Tibetan bears. I mean, when you there was also a cow, a bovine called the Sawala that was found in Vietnam in 1992, a wild cow. They had no idea that it existed. The panda took 100 years to find. By 1937, it was in a zoo. If they're looking for 100 years for Bigfoot, what are they looking for, and what are you going to send to a lab to find the hair, and what are they going to say when they find the hair if it turns out to be the hair of an animal? I mean, are we looking for something that's supernatural? Are we looking for something with different DNA? I mean, what do we have to compare to?
Well, you have to establish some delineations, I guess, in your approach to the subject matter. And, for example, I think I was telling Cliff when you first uttered this phrase in my presence, that's a T-shirt. Bigfoot is biology. So I'm restricting my approach to that of a scientific approach, and so as such, I'm obliged to stick to the guidelines and rigors of scientific evidence. And the conventional procedure is, in order to establish the existence of a novel species, you have to have a type specimen. Now, there has been more and more discussion in the scientific literature that short of a physical body or a sufficiently diagnostic piece of a body, like a jaw or a tooth or such, that, especially in the case of rare and endangered species, that we could establish a voucher specimen of a novel DNA sequence. That's unprecedented, but Sasquatch might prove to be a very good test case of that approach, of that philosophy. When you mentioned hair, again, the problem with hair analysis is it is a comparative discipline.
Exactly.
We establish the identity of an unknown by comparing it conclusively to a known specimen whose origin is well established. And so since no one has credibly walked up to and plucked a hair off of the Sasquatch, all we can do is say, hey, this hair doesn't match any known specimen. This was one of the first, when I compared notes, first met Dr. Henry Fehrenbach and compared notes and discussed with him the strategy that we might pursue. We both agreed that it was interesting that there were all these samples that had been submitted to labs, and invariably they came back as indeterminate. And that's really the only, that's the most positive result we could hope for, since there was no standard DNA, hair of Sasquatch to compare it to. But we thought, if these hairs are consistently coming back as indeterminate, if the experts are unable to attribute it to any known species, what's the basis of that? What are the underlying characteristics? So we went back and we dug up some of these reports, and we tracked down some of these labs that had done the analysis and asked them for their descriptions, the basis by which they came to that conclusion. And what was interesting was, here were all these independently collected samples that had remarkably similar characteristics. So something shedding hair that defied attribution to known species and yet was remarkably consistent across many different states.
Right, because if it's a mammal, it will definitely take on the traits of a mammalian type of creature here on planet Earth, right? We're looking at mammal, looking at RNA, DNA. See, and the reason why I bring this up is because I remember one of the first reports I did when I was doing my show Ground Zero was in 1995. It was the Chupacabra reports. And I called the Puerto Rican Department of Agriculture. I could speak Spanish. I was a fresh Spanish speaker. I'm talking to them. And they said to me, well, we think it's either a wild monkey or a dog. And I said, oh, okay. Because everybody was saying, oh, it's like an alien creature with little quills on its back and blah, 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 blah. No, I got it straight from the horse's mouth from the Department of Agriculture. They're thinking it's something that there's been a disease that makes the dog rabid or makes the monkey rabid. He goes and attacks the goats or whatever. That's why they call it the Chupacabra. And so I thought to myself, okay, and so you've heard the reports on the news where you see these big, mangy dogs coming into farms, and they go, did she catch the Chupacabra? Film at 11 o'clock. And everybody goes, no, that's not a Chupacabra. And I go, how the hell do you know it's not a Chupacabra? How do you, because it's a wild dog. Well, that's what the Chupacabra is, a freaking wild dog, right? So, why don't you just say it for what it is? But see, that's the thing. They had nothing to compare it to. So they're expecting some outrageous type of explanation when, you know, and you'd agree with me, it's pretty mundane, isn't it?
I think most things are pretty mundane, actually. Yeah, just because, yeah, don't get me wrong, the universe is a wild and fabulous place. There are lots of weird things out there. It turns out most things aren't that weird, honestly. Like, if you're talking about cryptozoology, you're talking about undiscovered species, and the first place you should look is for other precedents in mammals, for example, you know, or other species that are like it, because these things don't come out of nowhere. They come from evolution. Everything does. So you look for traces of things that are similar and look for familial groupings and all that sort of stuff. Cryptozoology should always first be grounded in what we already know about the biological world. There's no reason to explain one unknown with another. It gets us nowhere except for laughed at by the outside world.
So I guess then it leads me to Craig. You know, when reports come in, because you handle the Northwestern reports, what basically taints anything? I mean, what's the first thing that turns you off when you start hearing about a Bigfoot report?
All the fakery, definitely. I mean, there seems to be a lot of big stuff going on.
What would for you be a big fake? I mean, because, you know, people see things, they're so excited. I get this with UFO reports all the time. You know, Clyde, I saw a UFO, and I'm saying, no, what you saw is a string of lights that Elon Musk has put up in space. Thank you, Elon Musk. But, you know, what is it that, you know, completely when you see, like, oh my God, not another one of these?
Well, it's awfully, you know, blob squatch pictures, blurry pictures. You know, you look at, people came to me today and showed me pictures that were just blurry, and it just goes on and on and on. So,
what would be a great aid for you? I know that, and I always tell people this too. So, you know, people always get mad and they say, well, why are the pictures always blurry? And I say to them this. Okay, first of all, I can't do this because I don't have, well, maybe I do. Hold on. Let's see if I can do this here. I'm going to teach you guys a little lesson in investigation here. Hold on. Whoops. Okay. Sorry about it, guys. Okay. So anybody want to volunteer and bring your cell phones up here? Just stand up here with your cell phones, get them ready, put them in picture mode, please. There you go. There's one. We have a couple others. Okay. Got you ready? Got you ready? Take a picture. You blew it. You blew it. Did you get that? Did you get it? You didn't get it, did you? You know why you didn't get it? Because you didn't plan on it. Okay? And so if you didn't plan on it, which most people don't, you're going to get a blurry picture of a Bigfoot, you're going to get a blurry picture of a UFO. That's how it's done. Now, if you're lucky to get one that's hovering, if you're lucky to get one that's looking at you with, you know, loving eyes and wants to basically use you for food or for love, yeah, you're going to get it on camera. Otherwise, no. Okay? So when anybody tells you, where's a blurry picture? Take a piece of paper, throw it out, and say, take a picture of this, idiot. They're not going to be able to do it. So yeah, it's hard to get good evidence. And that's why I always get angry when people say, you know, skeptics all say, well, why are they always blurry? They're blurry because, I mean, you know, you saw the one, though, when they were focusing on it with the Russian footage, it looked pretty good. Okay? And you saw the one, Snoqualmie, that looked pretty good, even though it can be a guy in a suit, but it looked pretty good. So that's because we were focused on it, and it just somehow by accident shows up in the camera, and that is what you're looking at here. And that is how you're going to get a specimen. Now, I want to ask go ahead.
Yeah, to that point, we host expeditions, multiple expeditions every year, and we have for many, many years. About 4 years ago, we decided to do an experiment for this subject exactly, just to see how easy and why it is so hard to get a picture of a Sasquatch. So again, we had Olympic Project member Tom Baker. He was the Top Gun fighter pilot instructor guy. Guy had a huge sense of humor. He went out and purchased the Sasquatch outfit. And so we took all 20 of our attendees on the expedition, and we told them, showed him Tom in the outfit at 10 feet, and said, okay, we're going to go on a hike. And Tom is going to appear on this hike 5 to 6 times. And the first time, we're even going to tell you where he's going to be. He's going to be 100 yards up on a ridge, on a skid road, and he's going to walk up into the timber. This is when you're going to see him. Have your cameras ready. Whoever gets the best picture wins a hoodie at the end of this. And then later, after that, as we're progressing back down to the cabin, he's going to be in strategic spots, sometimes as close as 20 yards. And then he's going to duck and bob and weave. We want one of you guys, one of you 20 people with your smartphones to get one clear picture of Tom. Well, we got out to the clearing, the clear cut, up on the skid road, and lo and behold, 110 yards up there, here comes the Sasquatch up the road. It's Tom. Everybody's getting their cameras out, dropping their cameras, fidgeting, panicking, anxiety's kicking in. And they already know it's a guy in a suit. And he's in plain sight for about 25 seconds, and then he ducks into the timber. Not one clear, discernible picture happened out of 20 people that already knew he was going to be there. So we hiked on up to our destination, and we turned around, and as we're coming down, the first one, he was about 40 yards off, and he's standing broadside in the clear. Everybody comes down. They're shocked to see him. Everybody's fumbling for their camera, and he very methodically and slowly walks out of frame. Not one clear picture of Tom happened. And so the story goes on and on and on. What we ended up with, 20 people trying to do this. In a 3-hour adventure, we got one somewhat blurry picture of what may or may have not been a Sasquatch. And it just told such an incredible story. And then on top of that, the other thing is, with all this thermal equipment that we all possess now, and we all have, why can't you just go out at night and get a thermal imagery of a Sasquatch? So we pulled another experiment. Sorry, I don't need to be going so long here, but
that's fine. It's great.
We pulled another experiment. Same group of people. We took 4 of us, and every one of us was within 100 yards of the trail, from 50 to 100 yards, and we were stationary. We walked the group of 20. Half of them had thermal equipment in their hands. Their job was to get one of us on thermal, and we vocalized as we walked through this corridor. Again, not one good thermal hit. And because it was dark, there was debris, we were hiding a little bit, and we were stationary. We weren't even moving like a Sasquatch would. And if you talk about an eye-opener, so when somebody says, why isn't there a good picture of Sasquatch? We made it perfect, and it still didn't happen. And it was just something we wanted to do, just kind of reverse technology, and it just told a huge story.
Good, Shane.
Real quick on this, when it comes to sightings and stuff, I work with a group called Project Zoo Book. Amy Boo kind of runs it. Many of you are familiar with Amy Boo out of Ohio. One of the individuals that works in this group works at a particular zoo here in North America. I can't share the zoo, but he's a zoologist and whatnot. He's been to Africa. One of the individuals he worked with was studying cross-river gorillas for 10 years. In those 10 years, he had an 8-second sighting of a cross-river gorilla. 8 seconds of a cross-river gorilla. They were tracking nests and all that, but 8 seconds in 10 years. Put that in perspective, a known animal that really is eye-opening to me.
All right, I want to ask the mountain man.